Well, here we are. It is Friday, January 20th, 2023, and this, of course, is the weekly video we do every Friday. Take a look and see what's been happening in the auction market, online sort of places, including eBay, live auctioneers, Sotheby's, and so forth. Today we're going to talk about eBay and Sotheby's in particular, and a reminder about a sale that's coming up in just about 5 days that many of you are going to be interested in. It's been a busy week. A lot of stuff is starting to turn up. There were a bunch of sales that finished up on the global member pages. eBay had some good lots this past week. Sotheby's had some good lots. They have good lots coming up in a couple of sales as we head towards Americana Week, which I'm really fascinated to see how it does, because there seems to be an uptick in interest in antique furniture again, something that hasn't been going on for a number of years. There was a huge slide off, as many of you know, in the Americana market, European furniture, all that stuff seemed to go, the popularity seemed to go by the boards a decade and a half ago. And now I think there's a new, it seems like anyway, we'll see, there's a new generation of people coming along that have made some money, and they're tired of living in boring, gray, minimalist interiors. We talked about it in the decorating video a week or so ago. And I think it's going to be a real litmus test for the Americana crowd to see how it does. And if Americana, I've said this a number of times, I'll say it again, if American furniture starts to take off again, and interest in American history and the federal period, the early colonial periods and all that, you're going to see a jump in interest in China trade porcelain. Chinese export porcelain is going to rise in value, and it'll happen probably fairly quickly, I suspect, if Americana comes back, because Chinese export porcelain is traditionally in the collector market goes hand in hand with interest in European and American decorative arts of the 18th and 19th century. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, I guess is what I'm saying. And it's been about 15 years since the Chinese export market started to slide down in values. There have been some great buys around. Chinese export platters of the 18th century today sell for $200-300, and back in the 90s they were selling for $500 to $700, for example. The price has really dropped by about half. From what I can see, but there seems to be some life coming back to that, and I'm hoping that's true. We'll see. Time will tell. Time will tell. Maybe completely wrong. Who knows? All right, but let's take a look and see what happened over on eBay this week. Let's start there. It was a pretty good week. There were a number of lots up. Josh Chamberlain up in New Hampshire. Username is Juice1499. He had a bunch of stuff up. Jonies in Canada's got a bunch of stuff up, and the results were good. And in this case, you see that there's this bulb vase, a well-known type. These are very well-known. This one is unusual in that it has a yellow ground and it has this very nice red lotus bud at the top. And the most typical of these turn up most often in blue and white, sometimes in different enamels, but not that often in yellow. Very desirable color for this, and instead of bringing the usual $600 to $900 that these bring, this one brought $1,605, all owed to the color. Okay, this was a 19th century example, made probably during the mid 19th to late 19th century, somewhere in there, and it did really well. So that was good to see. And then the enameled Beijing enameled hand warmer. I talked about this last week in the preview because I thought it was a really nice example. We've had these in the past. They always do well if they're in good shape. The trick with Beijing enamels is that if they have any damage that is in any ways noticeable, you got a problem with them because they're very hard to restore. There are very few people that can do enamel restorations on copper and make it work well. And copper, as many of you know, if it bends just a little, the enamels start to chip off because there's no forgiveness in it. And the copper tends to be fairly thin. This one was a nice example. This one was beautifully done. It had the silk, these flowers on top. Often they're depicted as sort of on the idea of silk balls that you see on on certain porcelains. This one has an archaic sort of grid top with flowers sprinkled all around it. Nice looking. I don't see any damage to it. And we talked about it last week, and I thought it would bring, they typically bring at least 4,000. Sometimes they bring over 5. This one brought $4,700 on the nose. It was a good example. This was a really, really pretty one. I like the ground color in particular on it. Very attractive. And then over to this was that moss agate snuff bottle. I thought it was lovely. I thought the colors were beautiful. It was just a very attractive color combination with the green lower section, and then this sort of almost looks like pudding stone at the top, the way it's patterned. A beautiful little bottle, and it brought right where it should have, $645. That seems to be the price. We were last week. I think we said $500 to $700, somewhere in that range, and it certainly got there. It was a nice looking thing, though. I think right now snuff bottles represent a good value because there's so many copies on the market. I think a lot of people are shying away from them. So when authentic ones turn up, you can sometimes get a very good buy. You can get a really good buy. And then there was the Celadon with the Femi-Vert ground and the center, the landscape scene, and this nicely carved rim. Good looking dish. Here's the back of it. It has a Yongchen mark, but it's not a Yongchen dish, obviously. This is a 19th century example, but it did great. It brought $1,605 because of the color combination. I mentioned last week it was sort of unusual. It wasn't particularly large. It was only 11.5 inches, but it still did really, really well. Josh dated it as late 19th or early 20th century. My feeling is it was probably closer to around 1870 or 60, but he was being a little conservative on the dating, which is fine. People that collect these know what they are and how old they are, so it's not that complicated. And then there was this. We had on the identification assistance side, we had a number of inquiries about this plate because it had a very unusual border decoration. You've seen the central scene with the figures on it. It's a very well-known one, and we're done on lots and lots and lots of porcelains during the first half and second half of the 19th century. And but what was unusual about this, it had almost a Japanese Amari rim to it, which was very interesting. And that is owed, I think, to the exchange of designs between the Chinese and the Japanese during the 19th century. There was a lot of copying of patterns going back and forth. The Japanese, of course, had a long history of copying Chinese things. When they first learned to make porcelain, they copied everything right down to Chinois marks, especially when they were doing the in the 1600s and 1700s, and they were doing copies of crackwares and that kind of thing. They would often put Chinois marks on it, and then they expanded it to almost everything. But this one has a really unusual border, and as a result, it brought a very strong price. It brought $821. I thought it would bring somewhere between $800 and $1,000. I had a number of people ask me about it, and I said the same thing to and I said $1,000 maybe, somewhere up around there. And it did fine. And this wasn't a huge plate. It was, 12 inches in width. This wasn't a giant dinner platter that was, 16, 18 inches. It was fairly modest size, about a little wider than a normal dinner plate. But unusual, and unusual wins when it comes to bids. And then there was this really interesting, it was a jade, a nephrite belt hook with a roux head on it, nicely carved, 19th century, fitted into this silver strainer. Nice bit of silver in it. Good looking item. Nice combination of things. It did very well. It brought $910, owed mostly to the jade belt hook. That's what drives the price. The silver has some value to it, of course. It is an incidental value, especially if you're collecting things that were ended up in the European market. But it was this nicely carved jade belt hook that I think was really the driver. Beautifully carved, beautifully finished. Nice piece of jade. And then over here, you have these beautifully done bow pots. Mandarin scenes, first half of the 19th century, probably done around 1830 or so. And they have these giant gilded leaf, petal or lotus. They almost look like half of a lotus blossom or something like that. Handles on the side, these big floral handles. They had their covers still, which is sometimes a miracle because they often don't. Here's the set taken apart. Here's the bottom of it. There's some old collector marks or something on the bottoms. And these did very well. And these in the last couple of years, these have been selling for a little less than this in many cases. And this pair brought $2,619. And again, this is one of those one of the items that again, American furniture, European furniture collectors, people that collect dinner services and all that, porcelains for the dining room. This is the kind of thing that those collectors home in on and want to buy to decorate with. And these were particularly nice. So the price was good, and don't be, in a few years if these catch on again and catch fire again, they're going to be selling for $4,000 to $5,000 a pair before you know it, if it happens. All right, and then there was this really interesting memorial porcelain large cup and saucer judging period. Now last week I had mentioned that this was the same one. I thought it was the same one that had come up from the same seller a number of months ago, back in September, October. And I thought maybe it hadn't been paid for. I got an email from the guy that bought it, and he said, no, I bought it and paid for it, and this is another one that the guy has. And I can't remember if he wrote me and said he ended up getting this one too or what. But at any rate, this was the more realistic price range that I thought it should have sold in. But I jumped to the wrong conclusion about why this was up for sale again, because it didn't occur to me that he would have had two of these, because it's a very rare type. These are this particular style and type of export ware is very, very rare. And I don't think the price is particularly heavy. It's just sort of what export wares are bringing these days. But this was a very desirable cup and saucer. So there you go, at $471. The other one, the last one that sold for $150. There was a pretty big price difference. And then on to this, the large pair of rose mandarin covered temple jars, first half of the 19th century. There's a nice celadon ground. I thought these were really, really pretty. They're about 24 inches tall. And I think the price on these was pretty reasonable. In the past, we've seen the virtually identical types of jars like this in this size. And we've seen them sell for as much as $12,000, $14,000. And somebody picked these up for $7,100. Now you have $300 in shipping to deal with because they're big, and you may look at that and say, how could it be that expensive? Well, you have to realize that if they get shipped by the U.S. Post Office, it's going to have to go in 2 boxes, and they're going to have to be massive boxes because you've got to protect the piece. It's got to be double walled, and I don't, the shipping, economy shipping from New Hampshire to just here in Gloucester, which is only 120 miles from where he is, or 100 miles maybe, it was $295, and that is because of size and weight, but still way under, even that said, all in and done, was way under the money. And then over here to this was, I think, one of the great little buys of the week. $373 for the pair. These are 18th century porcelains. Maybe folks didn't realize it, but these are Qinlong period porcelain export beaker vases that have been mounted. The mounts aren't particularly high quality. They're good quality, but they're not great quality. And they look like early 20th century mounts. But the porcelains were old. The porcelains were nice old ones. And somebody picked a pair of these up for under $400, which I think was a bargain. The porcelain was made probably around 1780 or so, 1790. And I think this was, if these had sold for $900 or even $1,000, I would have thought, well, that's not bad. You got 2 of them, and they have ormolu mounts on them, and they are period vases. So somebody got a very, very good buy on those. And somebody wrote me, by the way, and they sent me an email this week, and they said that they went through it was an auction, and they just loved bids everywhere, and they were thrilled. They got a bunch of things. And this is why I always say, just, figure out how much you could afford, worst case scenario, and then just cover the items you want early. A lot of people miss out on things because they bookmark them. I'll come back to it. And what happens is you see so many things. If you're an active collector, you see so many things in the course of a week that you forget about them, and you forget to go back and check your watch list, and then suddenly it's too late and you've missed the piece. And we've all done it. I've done it. I'm sure most of you have done it at one point or another. So leave a bid. Go in, and when you see a piece, leave a bid. At least get on the radar, get it on there. You'll get a notice if you're outbid, but that way you're in the game, so to speak. And that's, I think, the best way to go about it. This was that very nice dragon robe that he had. Good colors, nice detail, well done dragon gilt work here. A very, very attractive robe. In nice condition all the way around. And it's a late Qing example, and it ended up selling for $7,788. Good price for that. All right, and then over here to this, I want to point this out because this was an interesting teapot. It had a replaced spout. The spout, of course, is not original. We got a metal spout on it now, and because they get broken and damaged. But what was fun about Yixing, or this period, Kangxi Yixing wares, was that these were really the first teapots that were shipped to Europe by when the Dutch East India Company began trading over there, for example, and tea was coming into demand, they were introduced to Yixing, and Yixing was shipped to Europe in huge quantities, such huge quantities that, as a matter of fact, there were a lot of European potters using a red clay also began imitating these. So you want to be a little bit careful because there are European examples that look very similar to this, but they're not Chinese. They're made in Europe. But these were the original, most popular teapots because the benefit that Yixing clay gives to the flavor of tea. It enhances the flavor and adds to the pleasure of drinking it, and that's why they use Yixing pottery, which the Chinese have been using since the 12th century. They started out first making little wine cups out of Yixing, and then later in the Ming Dynasty began producing teapots. But this was a nice one. It was reticulated, a body, lots of detail, bamboo handle, had a spout missing, of course, and it still managed to bring $1,011. Now, if it had its spout and all that, it would have brought $3,000 or $4,000. It had some impact on it. But this was a nice thing, and there are people out there that love what they call make do. When things get damaged, they will sometimes the people that they really love something. In this case, like the spout got knocked off, so they'll add a metal. They'll send it out into a tinsmith or a silversmith, and have them make a spout for it. And after that, they're referred to as a make do repair. In other words, you get it back to being useful as well as you can. All right, and then there's the stuff that's coming up this week. Before we go any further, I wanted to mention something. And this is it was a lot of it was the global. Those of you on the global member pages, and I mentioned it on the weekly video for you users, but also in general. I got a very nice email from Bronx. As many of you remember, we did a fair bit of coverage on that interesting sale of all the miniature bottles. They had I thought it was a really wonderful sale. I just thought it was an interesting sale. It had the feeling of an estate, not a bunch of dealers just getting rid of stuff they can't sell. This was an older collection, and they sent me a note, and the head of the Bronx wrote me a note. And he said that the sale did great, and apparently he said we heard from a lot of the Bidamount users and people from the Bidamount community spent, I think, a lot of money there. And they said that it was the first time any of their sales any of their Asian sale ever brought over $1 million. And they were thanking us for participation, which I thought was very, very nice. So those of you that got something, bravo. Bravo. All right. It was a good sale. And just as an aside, they have another sale coming up. If you're an armorial collector, get over there and check it out. They've got a bunch of very fine armorial wares coming up. And a few things from that Kirby estate where all the miniatures came from. I guess they also had some other pieces that are going into this sale. And again, old collections. That's what you want to buy. All right, so just keep that in mind. And if you buy something, at Bronx or somewhere, and you want to tell them how you heard about the sale, tell them. It's good for the site. It's good for the participation here. Bigger community, the more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. And these are the things that are on this week's newsletter page on over at Bidamount. We've already loaded it up for the day. We haven't finished all of the little details to it. It'll be done later on. Well, by the time you're seeing this video, it's been done. But we loaded it earlier this week so we can talk about the things that are coming up. All right. And if you're not a subscriber, you don't get the notifications when the newsletter page is updated each week. Come over to Bidamount. go to the newsletter page here, which is right next to the homepage button. Click this thing and sign up for it. It's a free notification. It's a free newsletter. And if we send out any general emails, during the course of the week, we do it once. We don't do it often. We don't bombard people with emails. We generally send out one a week. Sometimes we'll do 2 a week if something's going on that I think folks might be interested in knowing about. But that's what you want to do. All righty. And now over here, these are the things that are coming up this week on eBay. So do check them out. And this one I thought was very much in keeping with the video we did this week on China trade into East Africa. This is an export plate for the Muslim market, for the Islamic market, and it is the type of porcelain that could have easily been shipped into East Africa, Kenya, and that part of the world, as well as into the area of Iran and North Africa and the more mainstream Muslim communities. But this is a wonderful looking plate, and it's been dated incorrectly. This is what I want to point out. He's dated this as being 1850 to 1899. This is an 18th century plate. He's got a little mistake there. And if you look at the foot rim, that nice ivory foot rim points towards it being probably, in my opinion, this is a first half of the 18th century plate, possibly Kangxi period. Very nicely done, 9 or so inches in diameter, not an enormous plate, but clearly a plate for the Islamic market. It's a pattern we've seen before, but these are pretty rare. And right now it's only up to $124. It closes tomorrow, Saturday. All right. So if you like export wares for the Middle Eastern market, you've got a good chance here at getting something interesting. Even the rose, 8 1/4 inches in diameter. Even rose medallion bowls that have Islamic script in the middle of them bring a lot of interest and bring, $600-800 pretty easily. Much more than they do if they're just the regular export pieces you find that were sent to America and England. And here you have this. This is clearly, it's got the Arabic on it. It's got a pattern you don't typically see on regular export wares, but you do see on Islamic market wares. And I think this is a very, very interesting and pretty rare dish. So if you like rare things, you really want to maybe check that out. So it looks to be in pretty good shape. It's got some rim frips. There's this Chinese export milk pot. It's a side handle milk pot. Or chocolate pot. There's the handle over here on the side with a little vent hole, and there's the spout. All right, and this is a nice looking thing. It has sort of a Kangxi feel to it. I'm not convinced it's Kangxi though. I think it is 18th century, but the yellow on here looks a little bright, and I'm not absolutely positive that it's Kangxi. It could well be. It's hard to tell from the pictures because it's so brightly lit. But the foot rim looks pretty good on it, and the porcelain is nice and white and around the rim on the top. I think they cleaned it carefully before they put it up, and it closes tomorrow. It's only up to $52, and it should bring $800 to $1,000. All right, so I think this represents as a possible bargain for somebody out there. It has no visible damage, or severe wear or tear or anything. It's all there. So that looks like a good thing. And then this is nice. This is a 18th century Qianlong period small tureen, table tureen. It's only about 9 inches or so long, but beautifully decorated with that soft blue cobalt palette that they had. And it's got a little brown dressing on the rim, and it's got these sort of almost like butterfly handles on the end. I don't think they're technically butterfly handles. I think they're just like vaguely styled on ruyi heads, but sometimes they use butterflies, like you see on jade wedding bowls, those things. And here they have these little flanged handles on the ends with blue and white on them. Nice looking tureen. Closes on Sunday. It's up to 95 pounds or $117. It ought to bring $300 or $400. But if you're looking for a nice piece of blue and white, that might be it. And then there's this Famille Noire faceted vase with Verre decoration. This is not a Kangxi example, and they're not representing it as that. It's a late Qing, possibly early Republic type, but very handsome. Very nice looking. Here's a picture of the bottom. Somebody had turned it into a lamp at one point, But the bottom of this looks, late Qing to Republic from what I can see. The way the foot rim is, that very, very flat foot with a little bit of black enamel creeping over it. And then the bottom is just lightly glazed, but not fully, what I would call fully glazed. It was just as a very light glaze on it. And it's 18 inches tall, though. It's a big vase. This is a big vase. This vase, when you look at it, it seems like it's a 10 or 12 inch vase, because it's fairly wide, and normally that style of vase is 10 to 12 inches, 13 inches. This one is 18 inches. It's a big one, and it's being sold by a seller in Arizona. So if you're in the U.S., the shipping isn't too bad. It's the shipping from Arizona to here, for example, in Gloucester, which is in New England, is only about $90, which for a big vase isn't that bad these days. If you've checked postage rates lately, if you sell on eBay, you know what I'm talking about. The postage rates have gotten very high, very high. All right, and then over here, closing on Monday, Joni's has this very nice pair of jars, early Kangxi period. There have been a few pairs of these around in the last year. There was a pair of them that were at Christie's or Sotheby's, as I recall. These are almost identical to these, and they sold for I think around $7,000, something like that. These are up to $4,000 already. It closes on Monday. How big are these? Oh yeah, Joni's always puts their measurements way at the bottom. There's the bottom of it. That's why they're saying they're dating them to around 1680, early Kangxi period. The kilns officially opened around 1684 when the imperial kilns were reopened. These aren't imperial, but very nicely done. And the bases are done very much in what you expect to see from late Ming examples, because they were still doing bases and foot rims sometimes in that manner. And that's what these are styled after. And these are good size. They're 18 inches tall. All right, so these are bigger than the other ones that sold. The other ones that sold were around 13 or 14. So these could bring a couple of thousand more than the others. So 7 or 8,000, I think, and possibly more. The cobalt on them is also very, very nice. The quality of the cobalt, the tonality of it, and the drawing is very controlled. These are nice looking jars. And then over to this is also up at Joni's. If you're a Kutani collector, and I know who you are because I hear from you guys all the time, this is a nice Kutani plate that they picked up. It's a tatsa, actually. It's a footed compote, one of these things. But the decoration on it is very, very nice. Beautiful Kutani decoration, Meiji period, but very finely worked. Really, really finely worked. I like the scene a great deal. It's not your typical Kutani. It's signed on the bottom. And how big is this? I think this is about 10 inches in diameter or something. Hold on. 11 inches in diameter. So it's not a 6-inch tatsa. It's a good size one. It's to go in the center of a table. But that's a beautiful piece of porcelain. And right now it's just up to $46. Closes Monday. It should bring, as a good piece of Kutani, 400 to 500 anyway. But we'll see. But if you like Kutani, that's a nice example. That's a very nice example. And this I wanted to mention as a correction here. The seller is dated this or identified this as being Chinese or Japanese peony prunus. This is Chinese, and this is a Kangxi bowl. And it's been broken. It has a repair right there through the middle. You can see where the break is here. All right, but this is a very classic Kangxi dish, nicely done, and it's a great item. It's very decorative. And what's sad is it has the break, but the enamels are all in still very fine condition, and that's crucial. There's the break. You can see it, but that could be cleaned up. But the work here is really nice. The cobalt is a good deep cobalt color. The red and gold looks like to be in very good shape. It's just tiny bits of rubbing to the gold in the middle. And it's up to just $12.98. And it closes on Tuesday. It should do a lot better than that. How big is it? 10 inches or so? A little over 8 inches. 8 inches, 9 inches in diameter. Close to 10. And if this is a great thing. If you're not in the position to buy a perfect one of these that would sell for $600 to $1,000 or $600 to $800, and you want to collect and have a great looking shelf piece to study and learn from, these are the kind of things you can learn a lot from by just owning them and examining them, and you don't end up paying a fortune. Because I suspect this is going to go for maybe 100 or 200, 250 maybe, and that's it. And it may go for a lot less because of the crack on the back. All right, so it's certainly worth considering. All right, and then the last thing I want to, well, there's a couple of more things, but one of the last things I want to mention is this. So those of you, as many of you know, I love wood carvings. I enjoy them. I own a lot of them. And this is a really nice boxwood. They call these sometimes medicine ladies. Sometimes they did these in porcelain, and you'll see them with a naked Chinese lady laying out, and they called them doctor dolls. The truth is that the Chinese would never, Chinese propriety would never allow a doctor in the presence of a woman to be examining this model and pointing at where things are. It was really just a decoration for the West, for an amusement. But this is, I'm not sure this is a doctor doll because she's fully dressed in the way she is, but this is a beautiful little carving. The facial details are excellent. The color of the wood is excellent. Of course, boxwood has develops a beautiful patina over time, and you never want to, sand this obviously or anything. This needs to be maybe wiped down with a slightly dampened rag and maybe oiled. That's about all I'd ever do to it. Just a little bit of lemon oil or something. But this is a very attractive carving, and it's up to just $38. It closes in a week. It closes next Thursday, but it should bring $700-800, $600 to $800, somewhere in there. So we'll see. All righty, but it's a nice example. It really is. And there's some other things on here too. I want to mention that a fellow I know down in Marblehead, he owns he sells under the name, he has an antique shop there, interior design stuff. It's called Room Tonic, and he's got some nice export wares on here this week. He's got some of these with the twin fish plates, with the Mandarin scenes on them, like this. And you've seen these before. These are pretty nice ones. The twin fish pattern is very, very popular, and these plates, there's a couple of them. So if you want to get a pair of them, I think you might be in business here. They're up to $115. They close Monday. They're probably going to double that, just so you know, because the pattern is a desirable one. The twin fish is very, very desirable among collectors of first half of the 19th century porcelains. And so check it out. There's a lot on there this week. I meant to say, I think there's 150 items this week. There's a lot more than there was a couple of weeks ago. I can tell you that. I was really glad to see them all coming back because I like to see the activity. But there's a lot of material on here right now, and it's worth looking at. All right, so there you are. Also some auction catalogs. I know we have a lot of auction catalogs on our site, but there's also a number of them that are on here for sale, and some of them go back further than our archives. So you might want to check them out. We put in a bunch of them at the beginning for those of you that like to buy catalogs and books. You should like to buy catalogs and books. You should be buying it. If you're really collecting, you should be buying at least a book a month on something in your area of interest because it's really the way you learn it. And by reading and studying and so forth, as you all know. So anyway, so check out that. And what else? Yes, this sale. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure if I talked about it in the weekly video or just on the global member video, but this was the Royal and Noble sale. And this is something that Sotheby's started doing. The name is a little bit pretentious, I think, but anyway, of course they're running it in London. But these are odds and ends and pieces and things from collections of prominent European families. And this one had two, a British family and a very prominent Spanish family's artwork. And it's an interesting way to market them because you can buy King Leopold and Queen Astrid's dinner service with oyster plates, silver, satinwood tables, nice examples, beautiful pieces. There's nothing wrong with them. These are great examples, but they come with the added benefit of having a well-known provenance, well-known owners. And down the road, if you ever go to sell something and you have that paperwork and you keep it all in order, it does make a difference when you go to resell some days if it came from a well-known European collection. But some of the Chinese stuff that was in here was quite good, and Japanese. And this was one of them. It was a very nice, classic 17th century, late 17th century Kekiamon pattern plate. And there it is. Ooh, why is it doing that? There we go. With the ho-ho bird in the middle, and it had a hairline in it, but it was a nice one. I like the dragon around the outside. There's the hairline. And those of you that have been following us for a while, we just say get some 35% hydrogen peroxide, the kind the hairdressers use, or the food grade, and soak the plate in that for about a week. And that black line will just about disappear in 99% of the time. And then you just have to put it in fresh, clean water and let it soak for a few more days to rinse out any remnants of the cleaning of the hydrogen peroxide. And you won't have to worry about that hairline anymore or look at it. All right. And that one sold, I meant to say, it sold pretty reasonably. It ended up going for around $700 or $500, excuse me. All right, now over to here. This was that pair of tureens or covered bowls on stands. I had a bunch of inquiries on the identification assistant side, the auction preview thing off the homepage. People sent the links to this to me, and I thought these were terrific, and I thought they'd bring a lot more money. And I think it's because they visually don't read to be the size that they are. The under trays to these are almost a foot in diameter. These are not small saucers and bowls. These were big bowls with big, significant under trays, and very rare to find them in a pair with their lids. And these are Kangxi period. They had some fritting on the edges, but very rare to get a chance to buy these. With two under trays, two bowls, two covers, all there. So you got 6 pieces, and the whole set went for I think very, very reasonably $4,000. Somebody asked me what I thought they'd bring, and I said if you really want them, you should think about spending maybe $6,000 or $8,000 to get them. And somebody picked them up very reasonably, and they sold for $4,400, 4,400 pounds, excuse me, including premium. Okay, all these prices with Sotheby's are including the premium. So I think that was one of the great buys. It was within the estimate, but I thought the estimate was artificially low. All right, and then over here to these really nice pair of wine coolers, Qianlong period, 18th century, but very, very fine. They're a really attractive pair. One of them, it looked like it had maybe a faint hairline in the body, but beautifully decorated. And that may just be a scratch, too. I can't tell from the pictures. But very fine quality and not much wear to the enamels. And wine coolers often have a lot of wear to them, and because they got used a lot. Somebody picked up the pair for $2,520, right smack in the middle of the estimate. And this, again, is a sale where you could have gone through and just left bids. And this was one of the best things of the sale, in my opinion. This, I thought, was, from a historic standpoint, extremely interesting. And it came from the collection of the Viscount de L'Ancada in Spain. And this is a pewter box that was made in the 18th century that carries purportedly dirt from the tomb of St. Francis Xavier. And he was a major influence in the Catholic Church. And what I thought when I first saw this, I thought it was quite small. I thought it was maybe 5 or 6 inches tall or something. The way it reads visually when you look at it, it looks like it's just a few inches tall. This thing was huge. It was 41 centimeters tall, so that's about 16, 17 inches. It was estimated at 4,000 to 6,000 pounds. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. They have an extensive history on it. And the St. Francis Xavier he died in China, I believe, and his body was exhumed and moved a couple of times. And somebody over there had this pewter. This is Chinese pewter made with the crown on it, had it inscribed, and they put a little dirt in there out of sentimentality from the grave. of St. Francis Xavier. And I just thought from a historic standpoint, this thing was really interesting and big. This was a presentation size object, and somebody paid £12,600 for it, and I don't think that was at all unreasonable. I thought that was a really good, smart buy for a piece of historic metalwork done probably during the Yongchen or Qinlong period. Really, really nice. Really, really nice. And then this guglet, but unusual, Kangxi period, early form with very nice soft decoration, beautiful cobalt blue, precious objects, vases, peonies, bands, ribbons around books, and all of the typical border decorations you expect to see. This nice garlic mouth, couple of minor frits at the top, and that was it. And it ended up selling for $2,772, which was fine. Everything in the sale, I don't think any of the stuff brought crazy money. I really don't. I thought this was another good buy. A pair of Shunzi to early Kangxi period jars with covers, and these were good size. These were, what were they, 38 centimeters in height, so about 15 inches, 16 inches. And they were estimated at 4,000 to 6,000 pounds, which when I did the preview on this, I thought that was low. And it was low. They brought 10,000, but there's jars like this in the past have also brought 14 and 15,000. So again, I think a great buy. And then over to this. This is the fun part about it. If you buy Chinese stuff and you don't buy it necessarily in a Chinese specific or an Asian auction. This was a general furniture auction that had Chinese material in it. Sometimes you get very good prices. Hello, April. April's decided to come in and join me today. Where are you going? I think she's looking for a snack, I think. You had your snack. Huh? April. All right. And another Shunzi to Kangxi period jar was this. I always think of these just being Kangxi. I never blur the line by saying they're Kangxi, but I guess they do. And this is a very nice jar with people on it, crisp decoration, very, very nice. And it was estimated at 5,000 to 7,000 pounds, which we said we thought was awfully low. And we did mention in one of the videos we did that it should bring 15,000 to 20,000 pounds. And it ended up selling for 21,000 pounds. Because this was a good example. It looked to be in great condition, 41 centimeters tall, with its lid. Very nice. And then this was another piece that we got a lot of inquiries about, was this Immortals Bowl. And I didn't agree with the dating on it necessarily. Well, if it's 19th century, it's very, very early 19th century. And it's got a Shen De Tang mark on the bottom. The bowl was 14 centimeters in diameter, so just a hair under 6 inches. But an absolutely beautifully done bowl, interesting with all the immortals on it, in very nice condition, marked on the bottom, but a rare type. This was a really, really rare type. And I was kind of stunned by the estimate. I thought the estimate was oddly low, 4,000 to 6,000 pounds. It ended up selling for 75,000 pounds by the time it was all done. And that's about a little over $90,000 US. But again, a really well done, all decorated completely in the round. And it was dirty as all get out. I mean, this looks like sticker residue. Maybe there was some glue left behind. I don't know why they didn't clean it before they sold it. It's all very dirty down in here. Maybe they didn't want to clean it. I'm afraid it would make it look too new. I don't know. But that was a heck of a nice bowl. Really, really was. And then this other guglet that sold, we had a couple of inquiries about this. This is a crucifixion vase made for the export market. Many of you have seen these before. And here's the birth on one side, and then the other side is the crucifixion here. But really, really rare. And it did well. I mean, this type of this form is well known. We've already seen another one very similar to it in this video, but this pattern is extremely rare, especially in blue enamel or underglazed blue. Most of these were done in grisaille, and so to see one in blue makes it rather desirable. And it was estimated at just 1,500 to 2,500 pounds. I thought it would bring 4,000 to 6,000. Well, it went over that and went for 7,560 pounds. Excuse my dog if you can hear her. I think she's trying to get my other dog to come and play. All right, and then there was the giant coffee pot Qing Dynasty, Qianlong period. Let's see how big. This was 34 centimeters tall, so it was about 14 inches tall. That's a big coffee pot. And beautifully decorated, serpent handle, serpent spout, nice soft ground decoration, beautifully very delicately painted. Really, really delicately painted and quite elegant. And it's got that very lovely dome top on it. And ended up selling for $2,520, 2,520 pounds, right smack in the middle of its estimate. I thought that was a very, very nice buy, a really desirable piece. And then the Japanese brass-mounted red lacquer Ryukyu Islands Japanese box. It dates 17th or 18th century. It looks like a late 17th century one to me. Very, very attractive. I've always liked these. I love the colors. I love the visual aspects, the appeal of gold against red. It's like gold against blue. They just work so well together. And there's very, very fine groundwork. It's got a lot, it's a bit of legitimate wear down at the bottom from shoes hitting it and whatnot. But overall, this was a very nice old box. Hasn't been messed around with. And it was estimated at only 500 to 800 pounds. When I did the video, I said, well, you can buy it for that. It's a steal. Well, it ended up selling for 3,000 pounds. But that's fine. That's fine. That's what they bring. Years ago, back in the 90s, a box like this would bring 6,000 or 8,000, 10,000 even. This was, and if they bought it during that time, they probably, let's see, where'd this come from? This came from Spetchley Park, the Berkeley collection. This was the British aspect of the Noble sale. And these are the folks that Spetchley Park was where Winston Churchill was supposed to be strategizing during the war, and he ended up not using it. I mentioned this before, but it ended up becoming, the family donated the property, the land, and everything to be used by the military as a base staging area during World War II. So they did their bit, as they say. All right, but this was a very handsome box, and these are pretty big. This is 11 by 3 feet long, 11 inches, 1 foot 11 inches tall, 3 feet long, and almost 2 feet deep. So it was a good sized box, very attractive, very, very attractive. And lastly, just a reminder, this was the Cohen & Cohen sale. It's coming up at Bonham's in 4 days. This is just a reminder to those of you. I'd heard from a bunch of you that have sent inquiries or looking for information, and just a reminder that if you haven't gotten the information back yet, sort of get on them about it, because it's 4 days till the sale, and today's Friday, and they don't do too much, I don't think, on weekends there, but this is a really attractive sale, and Cohen & Cohen, as you know, is one of the premier China trade, in particular, dealers. They specialize in the China trade stuff in the world. They've been around for half a century. They sell great things. They sell to museums and whatnot. And you could do a lot worse than by buying something out of this sale. I'll tell you, there's some beautiful things in there, and I don't think the estimates are necessarily very strong. But we'll find out. All right. There's some very nice objects though, so keep that in mind. All right, and that pretty much covers the week. So thanks for watching. Check out the newsletter page over on Bidamount, and there's a lot of stuff on there this week. There really is. And if you haven't signed up yet for that notification when we update, do it while you're there. It just takes a second. We do not. Somebody asked me, do we rent mailing lists? No. We don't. I've been asked to. It's a funny thing. I've had people ask me in the business, could we have your mailing list? And I always say no. It's an absolute forget it, because there's thousands of you, and it would be a betrayal, basically. So we don't do that. We don't do that. But I've been asked it a few times, what I do with the mailing list. That's it. It's on a private server. With a small management company that takes care of our websites, and it all stays right there. All right. That's it. Thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment if there's something you want to see. I've got a couple of interesting things we're working on for next week that we'll talk about more next week, to do with doing some interviewing and being interviewed by someone. And we're going to do a recording of it. And it's fun. It's a sort of a new chapter here. And because things are going along pretty well, we can do that kind of thing. So it'll be fun. All right. But more details, when I know more, you'll all know more. All right. So have a wonderful weekend. Stay warm if you're in the cold areas. Get a tan if you're in if you're in the warm areas. And see you all next week. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.